Teddy Haynes a few years ago and smashed the fish. And it's still, the big motors these days troll with the size. And it was fine too, yeah. I don't mind stirring the bottom up as well, so if your prop's sort of hitting the bottom, it's the way to go.
It's not a bad thing.
It's not a bad thing, yeah. And there's some guys like Michael Green used to work with us. That's David Green's son. He's a real good fisher. I've on Flathead Classic 1,000 times. But Michael trolls his lures about from here to you guys behind the prop. I'm not
Very close.
Yeah, really.
Yeah, I'm not into that scene, but he believes the motor attracts them.
Attracts them a bit.
And they come straight into feed and they see the lure just eat it.
Yeah.
And he catches a lot of fish.
Yeah.
So, and I've seen him do it.
How far back would you guys normally?
I'm about probably the closest from near the back wall, so 10 metres.
Yeah.
8 to 12 metres. Not much further because if you get weed on all the time, it's too far to line back in again. So that's the main reason. Anyway, time.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So you get straight back in, get back out again. But generally speaking, yeah, just drop it back to about there or cast it.
Yeah. My biggest thing is it's just far enough for it to hit the bottom. As long as it's hitting bottom.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to hit the bottom all the time. It can be every now and then. But yeah.
And
You can get an app for your phone nowadays, can't you, with the speed, like a speedo?
Yeah, you can.
Yeah,
So if you've got
yeah.
Navionics app on there, it tells you what you're doing.
Yeah.
But keep it plugged in because it chews the battery up. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Depth at that speed?
yeah, so depth it varies on the lure that you're using, mate. So if you are my favourite depth to troll for flathead on the high tide, say on the flats, is and I'm trolling a lot of weedy areas, is around about that 3 to 5 feet deep. I believe the big girls are up in there, and I've caught too many to say they're not up in that area at that time of the tide. And I'll fish for the first 2 hours to run out till I literally can't drive anymore because it's too shallow. That's when I pull out, and that's the only reason I do pull out. Well, sometimes I want to stay out there, but I can't because I get stuck. So I get out of there. So whenever you're trolling up in those areas where you know the flathead are in, generally there's only one way into there and one way out, and if you leave it too late, you're stuck in there till the next 6 hours. So, and you don't want to get out. You sink up to your wad in mud.
Yeah.
So that's just too hard.
Very boggy.
Very boggy.
Yeah.
So, but the flathead are up in there feeding, and sometimes they'll stay in there. I don't think I've ever been really stuck in there yet, maybe for half a tide. But the flathead are still there. You can catch a flathead whilst you can keep fishing. But you don't want to get in that scenario because you get the next spot waiting for you. Yeah. So as I always say, we have every 15 minutes of the tide we have a spot worked out where we're going to be, and we only move because we didn't get fish at that spot previous.
So obviously in that sort of water you're not using deep dives, just using normal.
No, so you are using shallow lures or shallow diving,
Yeah.
but keeping the lure generally small. But in saying that, I wanted to teach you guys tonight about that. So one of my favourite little lures to troll are these little fellows here, which are called a shad flow. I've caught many fish over 80, 90 on these. I've lost my biggest fish of my life on these, which is I know it was over a metre. I saw it right next to the
Mythical
boat
fish.
many times.
That was the 3 metre flathead.
That's
No, I reckon it was about, I don't know. It was
about 2.8. Just
I've-
shy.
I've caught 10 over 90, and I know this fish was well over a metre, so I know how big they are. And I thought it was
So all the fish you caught, they've never had over a minute?
no, 98, 98 point,
No.
I think 98.3 is my biggest.
Yeah.
I've never seen a beta fish on the program.
I have down south, but not up here.
Yeah, not from here.
Yeah,
Does it exist? That's the question.
I think it does
It'd have
exist.
to.
Oh, that one did. The one I saw did.
It wasn't on
I-
the buggy,
I was
so
try-
it didn't.
I was trolling that lure around. I've got pictures of it, which I was going to show you tonight, but I didn't bring it along. But I might post it on Facebook. But it was straight out of the box, and I've been using those lures all the time. But I lost a couple of good fish, and I changed the colour to because my hooks are a bit sticky. You know, the hooks that come on those lures are really good, but I fish like drag. If you fish any heavy drag, you'll snap them off on a big fish. So you need to up the grade the hooks, but then it doesn't quite swim as good. So he's got to persist with it, but you get the same size hooks again, the same thickness, and just replace them, of course. But they are just such a great lure. And this particular day, I was trolling away, and I was on my own, and I had 2 rods out. One I was working, one was in my holder. I might even have 3 out, I don't know. They do that in Flathead Classic though. Anyhow, so I try along and I work my one, and anyhow, I think I got a fish on this one, and I was actually in neutral, just growing along, and I've got that fish in. It's only about 50 or something like that. The other rod was like, and I thought I was stuck on the bottom, you know. So I actually got my other rods in, and I thought, oh, so I just left it in the rod holder, and then I drove around. I don't want to pop my line, so I drive around, and the rod's like, just pull and drag. It's not a heavy drag, like that. And I went around, and I grabbed the rod out of the rod holder, and I'm trying to flick up, and then I felt it move. I thought, oh, it's a freaking stingray, because it was stuck at the bottom, you know. So, and the water was very clear, and it was only about probably 2.5, 3 foot deep. So I thought, I started giving it heat. So I was trying to get the lure out of the fish's mouth, out of the stingray's body. I'm giving it heat, and it's like, I'll take it up over there. And then it done a U-E and swam straight past me, and I nearly freaking fell over the boat. I was like, holy shit. The size of this thing, you know, it was a flathead. It was like, I mean, a metre plus. I still got hairs in my arm going up there now. And I see it, but it's so big. Anyhow, then I just completely changed my whole scenario. But the trouble was, I'd given it so much before, it actually ripped. I was down to one hook. One hook was, and the ring was completely ripped off the back. And I'm down to like 1 or 2 hooks in the front, because I saw it swim past. I saw it in his mouth, and I was like, oh shit. So I dropped the drag right back, and then it's just doing it was just out there, just sitting there. That's when I got to see the whole size of how big it was. Massive head shakes, and then the little sort of like that. And I pulled it up, and I took a photo of that one hook that's like straight out, just like that. Everything else is gone. And so the treble, the 2 prongs broken off, the other was just ripped off. And the lure was completely like demolished, like crushed, scratched, ripped, because it had been up in that part of its mouth and just been hammering it, you know. They catch big fish, and Stuart's lures. You look in his box.
Yeah, everything's pretty small.
Everything's small.
Yeah.
So when I say elephants eat peanuts, but they do. They like those little fish, and you know, the only time I use bigger lures, which my next size up might be that sort of size there, you know, which is sort of like a 9 centimetre job. So that one's around about 60 mil. This is 90 mil or 100 mil. Those I'll use when I'm trolling. So that little one, I'm using those in that sort of 2 feet to 6 foot. They'll get down to about 6 foot if you work it. Then over 6 feet, sort of 8 to 10, I'm using that type of thing there, or similar. And I don't do much trolling. I don't know if it's true. I don't do much trolling sort of over about 12 feet deep. But what I want to tell you about is many years ago in the Flathead Classic, Peter Bakula, if you know of him, a very good game fisherman, but also a very good flathead fisherman. And Pete had an endless supply of lures. I used to sell a lot of them too. But he would troll the Seaway with that size lure, and he's trolling in 30 foot deep. They get down 30 feet, and he's trolling the wall up and down, up and down, up and down, where no one hardly fishes because it's too rocky and you lose too much gear. But from the little inlet on the north wall of the Seaway, that little inlet where they pull up there and walk across the beach and go surfing, whatever, down to the green or just past the green, that's on the bend past where all the effluent pumps out, clean effluent that is. And he'd just go up and down, up and down. He'd go down the current on the run out, and he'd burn back around and go back up, drop his lures out and go back down again. I think he lost about probably 1 lure every time he trolled. But he'd have 20 of them in the boat, and he'd just tie on 20 lures. But he caught so many big fish.
Yeah,
So many big fish.
Yeah.
I think he actually won the Flathead Classic one year. I think it'll come second. Back in about probably 1998 or something like that. Yeah.
Lots of fishing back then.
Yeah.
Plus you go.
So but on those lures, you get down 30 feet. So how do you say which lure is the right size for flathead? When they're taking one that's 25 centimetres long, and I'm using 6 centimetre ones, you know. I think it's just a situation in the area of fishing and common sense. It needs to get down, it needs to kick on the bottom. You need to be able to work it so it gets down the bottom, and he's whacking those lures. I used to watch him whacking them down in 30 foot of water, and you get a big one on, you know, they're all 70 plus fish. So you just have to have a range and decide where you're going to fish. But if $30, $40 a pop, those big lures, you don't want to lose them, that's for sure. I don't. No. But so I generally fish the flats. Okay, I fish the flats on the high tide first 2 hours. When it's time to get out of there, I get out of there. Then I go down, I find where the water's draining off the banks, and I'll probably go cast soft plastics for the next 2 hours, because that's on a good stage of the tide, and get a lot of fish on soft plastics for 2 hours. And then on the bottom, or near the bottom, I know, okay, they've all swam off that big bank, it's only that deep now, and they're going to be along that whole edge along there, so then I'll troll up and down along that edge. And if I've got a spot, or depending on the wind, what I'm going to be doing for the next hour, the first to run in, which is my best time to catch fish, sometimes I'll keep trolling because they really come on, because they're getting ready to go, they're hungry, and they're getting ready to go back up onto the bank, and they're in feed mode already. And every time you go past, if my kids were like 20 in a session, just double go. And they're 50, 60 centimetre ones, you know. One thing I will admit, that I don't get many big fish in the deep like I do in the shallows trolling lures. I don't know, you, Stuart?
No, I think, shallows my go-to, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Even like deep water jigging and stuff, I've caught a lot of fish, but no big ones. I know that they're there, but yeah. It's probably got something to do with the time that we spend as well doing it.
Yeah, I think
we
so,
are
yeah.
predominantly up in that shallow stuff, so of course you're going to catch more fish, but it's just like looking at the stats after a Flathead Classic and say what's the best colour lure for a flatty, and everyone says pink. It's because 98% of the people use pink, so they don't use a gold or a white or anything like that, so you can't rule it out. It's just what we spend most time doing or using. But you've got to be confident in it. So
that's right. Yeah. So colour wise, I like a lot of clears, and I'm trolling in the shallows. I don't mind pink; it's not too bad. I like red. Dark red's really good colour. So for trolling, nearly like a browny red colour, that sort of dark red, deep red.
you like that type of.
Yeah, get like that.
That's very similar to that type of colour.
Even darker. Yeah. Can pass it around. Yeah. Years ago, this sort of colour, Elton John colour, was really popular. That's like a pink with everything on it. I think it still is a good colour, actually.
Yes.
That's actually a really good lure to troll around that sort of 10-foot mark. So if I were you guys, I'd have a couple of lures in the shallow variety and a couple of lures in that sort of, that'll get you down to about 3 metres to fish the edge of the banks. Because a lot of those banks, when it's low tide, it goes straight down. So from 2 foot deep on the edge of it to 10 foot deep might only be not even wide enough for you to troll your boat along, you know. So you'd have one little shallow lure that side and one deep one that side. So you're better off getting down where it starts to taper out a little bit and troll that edge. That's the secret. And troll that 8 to 12 foot sort of size lure.
So you guys focus where the drains come down, or you just go that whole bank?
Oh no, focus where the drain comes out, and I'll keep going until I don't get fish.
Right.
Yep. And then maybe there's another drain a bit further up, so I'll try and get to that. Come on, another fish, another fish.
I try to fish the whole bank, as long as the water's off it. But like I always say, I always try to predict it. So I have all my lures clean by the time I get to the drain. Then 9 times out of 10 you might get a fish, whatever, and then you've got enough time to sort fish out. You might drift a bit and all that, get to the next drain, and then you're ready again. But but there's always going to be fish that don't go to a drain; they just fall straight off the bank. And I think you need to, if you just go like troll or fish a drain and then burn to the next one, you miss too much.
One thing I'm going to do, I keep saying every year I'm going to do it, but I haven't done it because I've always doing so well in the other lures. But this year I'm going to try something that's a shallow diver in that size, and maybe even the big size like Stewie's got, because they still only go down a metre, right? And I'm just going to try it, trolling it in the shallows.
Yeah,
Have
you're
you
running out of time to try because
I
you're not
know.
trying it in the classic.
Well, I'll do it.
But you need to try all your stuff before a comp. That's the biggest thing. But
Have you done that yet? Troll big
I
ones?
haven't. No.
Because you do so well on the little ones, you don't want to change.
Yeah.
But I have so many shallow diving lures for power and stuff. I'm going to try it. But
I've tried a
Could be
lot
new
of
fad.
yeah, I've tried a lot of stuff like that type of size, which isn't much bigger. It's still about
That's good and deep.
70 mil. But I try that in the shallow, real close to the bone.
Do you?
Yeah.
Lot of weed.
Yeah. You just run it. I always just run it in a vertical rod hopper straight up,
Mm.
and just have it just
So
above.
Stu, let's pass this to you, mate,
Yeah.
that one. Stu's talking that lure there.
Yeah. So just something that dives deeper. It always holds in the water, and generally they've got quite a big action, so they throw a lot of weed as well. So if you get something with a real tight shimmy, 9 times out of 10 you can just give it a couple of flicks and it'll flick the weed off, rather than having to wind it in and take it off.
Don't get yourself sinking lures, guys. Get floating lures.
Yeah.
Because when you do that twitch, it pulls straight back up when it's got the slack.
Yeah.
And that's what they really like. And a lot of time, if you just
Or it backs out the weed.
backs out of the
Yeah.
weed. So if you just troll your lures, hold on to it, and troll along,
Half asleep.
and nothing's happening. But as soon as you move it, they just jump on. They just, I don't know if they're watching and they're following it, whatever. But if you're active, constantly moving, I'm constantly moving, he moves it more than I do. It's fish. But don't just have it sitting in the rod holder and troll along.
So that's not the go, just don't put them in the holders, hang on to them.
No,
Yeah.
hang on to them, keep
Try
the
to
tip
hang
down low. And like when I'm driving, I'm constantly watching my sounder. And when I see that it goes from 4 feet up to 2 feet, I know my lure's digging in at 3. I'll lift my rod tip up like that to try and pull it over, get the weed. If it goes ting, 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 ting across the weed, and then it goes back down to 4, and I'll lower the rod down with it. Yeah. So,
Do you do the drop back and let it sit there? And pull
If I get
Yes.
a hit and I miss it, 100% I'll drop it straight back.
how I do it, mate, is I pull it forward. Sometimes I get hit on that thing, but then I drop it all the way back again. And then I'll troll for about maybe 10 metres,
Yeah.
and then I'll work it forward again. Or sometimes
Yeah.
I just work it, you know.
First time I did that, got more PB for that.
Exactly
The drop
right.
back.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
back.
100%.
Yeah.
So they see it, and as soon as it stalls for a sec, they just nail it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But if you're not holding it, if you're not doing that, working, it's hard work.
Yeah.
You get blisters on your blisters, you know. But that's what makes you catch fish. Yeah. And as I said, if you're fishing a company very competitive, trolling has to be part of your day's itinerary because that's going to score you more fish than doing something else at the time.
And it's like you said, when
Yeah.
it's really windy, it's too hard.
Oh, it's fantastic. It's
Yeah.
windy. Yeah. I love it's windy because the guys that fish the deep find it really hard. So they suffer. Yeah. So yeah. But I just passed this. This is a new one from. This is quite well priced. They're sort of like about $16 your price, but they're a new Berkeley one, and that's a perfect size lure to use. It's a 80 mil, so that's what I'd be using out in that 8 to 10 foot sort of depth, or 2 to 4 meters deep.
They do
That's a
that
smaller, and a
massive-
smaller one too. Sorry.
Yeah, they do a
And
60 mil as
Yeah,
well.
60 mil you'd run in close. So if you want to do like a couple of different lures, that's the sort of thing
Yeah.
you might want to use.
With your clips, do you both always run clips?
I run clips with my kids because they always want to swap the lures around. I hate retying all the time. I'm trying
I
to fish.
always tie it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
What
so
does
I
the
tie it.
Just a loop knot, yeah.
Solid looks on
Yeah, good hooks. Yeah, good hooks. They use us for barra too. Yeah.
What's those new clips that they're doing? I just can't think of the name of them, they're like not like the old,
No, they're in your bag.
Yeah,
There's
the
one
ones
in
that
your
you
bag.
just fold on.
yeah,
Like
they're
a
awesome.
fast attach.
Fast touch,
Yeah.
Yeah.
they're
Well, they're-
awesome.
Yeah.
They're even
Very
easier.
handy.
The one in your bag there now, so you just get the loop on the bib and stick it through and just turn around and that's on
Yeah,
and off.
I always put that on more like a stainless island.
Oh yeah. Sounds
Just
anywhere.
to give it the extra.
Yeah, ring, get a bit more action.
Ring,
Yeah, yep,
Yeah.
no, good call.
Luke,
Yeah.
Luke Fallon told me that.
Oh, did he? Yeah, okay, yeah. He's a fisherman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, and I know you asked before about speed, like going into the wind or out of the wind.
Yeah,
I don't care which way the wind's blowing, I always go with the tide.
with the time.
Yeah, so,
So if the tide's with the wind, it's going to be real quick. You're going to spend more time in neutral. And I kind of just put in gear just to correct it. But yeah, I always go with the tide.
yes.
With the tide, so even if you finish your run, you don't even trolling away with that.
No, it's burn
No,
back
I'll
up.
burn back up.
Like I say, the cool's the same thing. So,
There's no point basically.
well, you get it, you will get them the other way too, but it's better to pull your lines up and go back up.
And it's a lot
Yeah.
slower. The fish against a tide is so much slower than going with it.
And they get down deeper and dig in harder and get more weed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because all your weed falls over like that and they're swimming, instead of swimming over it, they're swimming into it.
Yeah, good
So,
point,
yeah. And a flatty always sits
Ploughing.
head on
Cool.
into the tide
Yeah.
because it's an ambush point for them. So,
Mm.
yeah. They're not a. They are active, but they're quite a lazy fish as well. They'll sit there and just wait. Yeah.
I've heard that some guys will actually drop the size of their braid in their leader
Yeah, I do. So
to get down.
my 2 troll rods there, mate, and I don't use flash gear for trolling because to me it needs to be soft, and you know both my rods aren't flash. Oh, my reel is on that old reel there maybe, but so that little one there, that's one of those lures, actually the same colour that got smashed on that one. But that's just a raider rod. It's only very light. It's 2 to 4 kilos. So that's a really good, because you want to see that tip bouncing the whole time, you know. As soon as it stops bouncing, it weed on there. So you've got to pull it up. So that's separate the day. The drag's quite light, as you can see.
Yeah, and leader.
Leaders on this one, I think it's 12 pound. And but now when I know where it's a big fish area, like maybe Jurassic Park or something like that,
Yeah.
I'll run a 20 pound bite leader now.
But what about your braid? Will you run that small?
Oh, my braid's only 6.
Yeah.
Yep, 6 or 4, even at 4. It just gets those little lures down a lot deeper, a lot easier, and it works a lot better. So just remember the 2 things to get your lure down if it doesn't want to get down is to drop it back further, or drop your rod tip down, or use lighter lines, leader, braid. That'll get your lure down. So it'll probably enhance its depth by double if you do any one of the 3 above.
I always troll like 3 pound, 2 or 3 pound braid, 6 pound leader, like light, and then just a real small bit of 10 or 14, just as bite leader. Yeah.
Yeah.
And very short bite leader as well. If it's too long, then you've got too much drag.
Yeah.
But yeah.
There are some areas I have that are really good spots on the first to run into, but as I said earlier, there's so many good spots on the first to run in, casting plastics, whatever. It's always a hard situation, but in certain times of the year, particularly like last month, there's a lot of fish on that stage of the tide at the back of, say, Russell and those areas. The fish are up there. Now they're moving down towards the front of the area. They move gradually as the season goes on closer to the bar. Then they go back up again and disappear into wherever. So during that period, we'll do a lot of fishing around the back of Russell and Cabbage Tree and that sort of area. And I've got a lot of spots there. I fish on the bottom of the tide and the first to run in and produce a lot of fish. And I'm fishing about sort of 8 to 10 feet. So I'm using a bigger lure like that, those ones going around, not these little ones. And get a lot of fish. The consistency and size in that depth is better. So a lot of 60s, constantly 55 to 65 or 70. But unfortunately, when it comes to the Flathead Classic time, they're not there. They're out the front somewhere, so you change the soft plastics and catch them, whatever.
What's the bag limit for flatties?
5 flatties, 40 to 70?
40 to 75, yeah.
Yeah.
So the other rod I'm using is just a little Sedona 2.5 or 2, I think it is. And it's 2 of these. Just on a cheap quantum response rod, just a little thing. But again, I think it's 2 to 4. 2 to 4. Yeah, so 2 to 4 kilos are really good flathead trolling rods. And long's good too, like 7 foot or 7 foot 2 in length. I don't know, you still like the
Yeah, I
lengths?
like 6 foot 8, 7 foot max. Yeah, I just think anything over 7 foot is a little bit awkward. But yeah, I'm very light. I just use a 1000. And,
He'll get the experience eventually.
Like
Still bits my ass, which is not
I was
good.
gonna say,
Sometimes.
if you just want to have a look at the Flathead Classic results, and Stuart Rice is normally up there, and Doug's
But
just a number.
when
But anyway, we won't go into
Hang on, we'll go a bit further. We'll go a bit further. When Stuart has kids and realises there are things called tying knots, undoing, breaking up fights on the front deck of the boat, and getting lunch ready.
That's-
Yeah, all the time.
And for that fact, we've actually had a shop comp. We run it 6 years,
Oh,
and
here we go.
we had a
Okay,
customer,
Just got to turn this off.
and
for a
I
second.
won 5 out of 6, and Dino won the other one, and Doug's got a
Runner-up.
respectable 4th out of 4 a lot of times. So that's all right. Yeah.
You know, it's really hard, but the boss has to let his staff do it, okay?
We are very competitive.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. Anyhow, Just look at the results after this year's Flathead Classic, okay?
Yeah,
Because we fish out of the same boat, so it's even, Steve.
that's it.
Yeah. Okay, tools, guys. There's a few tools you need to have in your boat, just mandatory tools. You need to have a lip gripper of some type. So all those fish you saw with a sort of gripper in the mouth of the fish, it just makes life so much easier without getting your hands spiked in this area here, which always happens if you try and grab a flatty, or particularly in your thumbs. So just a lip grip. These ones here are fine, that type of thing's fine. That's where you start out in quality and go up from there to the metal ones. And you get the metal ones that spin, so no flick. It doesn't flick off, it actually stays on because the top turns. Next thing is a pair of hook-out guns which you guys have got in your bag. So hook-out guns are really good. And when you've got a little fish on that's under 40 and you don't want to keep it, or any fish you don't want to keep, especially if you're trolling, you just hold it over the side of the boat, don't even bring it in the boat. Just grab the hook with that trigger on any of the trebles and just flick it and the fish just falls off. It's as simple as that. Very quick and very easy.
I think Dougie caught one, I was about 40 or something like that, and didn't even bring it in the boat, hook out guns behind the dash, and it was like 5 seconds it was off. Had it up, hanging, got the hook, flicked it, gone. Straight back in the water. It's very quick.
Not what Stuart was doing, use pliers to get those hooks out of those big ones. Easier. Make sure you got good braid scissors that are sharp. I think you got those in that box as well, guys, bag. And probably a little, if you do a lot of lure, hook changing, like I always have spare hooks on the boat because you get a couple of those big fish on your favourite lure and your hooks are gone. That's it. You got your dud lures or your lures that might not be working the day, but you got a crappy set of hooks that are all bent out and don't want to work anymore. You need to steal a hook off another lure or have spare hooks in the boat, and you need the split rings to do it. Otherwise, you get the old ring up the thumbnail trick. It doesn't really go down too good. It's a terrible feeling. But split ring is a little thing on the end. You just put on the ring and the hook comes off like that, and you put on the new one, old lure like that straight away. Old hook off, new hook on, and it's just so quick. So get yourself a pair of split ring pliers. Leader, the two I always have in the boat is 12 and 20, but I have every size under the sun, but 12 and 20 are my most popular used sizes. You guys have got that too. And that's probably about it. Stu has a UV torch so he can look at his lures and think,
Yeah.
maybe I'll catch a
So
fish
we
on
have
that one.
play on